One more time, good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Johnson. I'm the CEO here at InitiativeOne, and I just want to welcome you and thank you for coming this morning. Boy, it's already March 6th or 7th today, I guess it is. And we're 8th. Oh, I'm even a day behind. Life is a blur. Life is a blur. So we're so happy that you're here today to learn, to continue to grow as leaders, and just we are so grateful to have the community of leaders that we have. We want to recognize today is International Women's Day, so I want to acknowledge the women in the room and the sponsors who help us be successful in the organizations and feel included and a part of the organizational success. So thank you for all of you who are here. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker, Dr. Fred Johnson. Today, he has an awesome lineup of a speech. It's called, "It is Everything Unsaid That Is Holding You Back." So let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Fred.
Thanks, Trace. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
So we have well over 700 people that we know of that are watching this, and that doesn't include all the companies that are watching. And I understand that we have 33 school districts that are represented and watching today. So I want to give a shout out to all of our educators and thank you for the incredible job under immensely difficult circumstances that each of you all deal with. So today, we're going to talk about those things that we don't want to say, but we need to say. Does anybody ever struggle with that whole subject matter? Okay, the whole hand, okay, the whole place is raising their hands. So several years ago, I was working with an NFL team, and I was working with their scouting department. And one of the leaders in that department said, you know, we're really struggling with our performance. We just had several draft choices that did not pan out. We spent millions and millions of dollars. The average player that is studied, not even drafted, they spend well over 7 figures on every year. The average scout is on the road for 220 days a year, sacrificing his family or her family in order to gather information to make great decisions. And he tells me this story that they were in need of a kicker. And they went all over the country scouring a kicker, and all of the scouts were very much aligned that there was one kicker that they had to have. But the head of the scouting department was not on board. He wanted another one, and it was absolutely, there was not going to be any discussion. So when he asked, what do you all think? What do you think he heard? Crickets. Have you ever been a part of a team and you said, or the team leader said to you, what do you think? And you got crickets? You know what? Crickets are never the sign of a world-class team. They're never the sign of a world-class team. Because if you've got a psychologically safe team and you say, what do you think? Even if you've got half introverts, half extroverts, what are you going to get? What are you going to get immediately? You're going to get responses immediately. And so they ask, what do you think? And what did they get? Crickets. Because they had seen in the past that it's my way or the highway. And if you don't give me the answer, I may even embarrass you in front of your team. And so as a result of that, people were not going to be real with what they really were thinking. Oh, do you think that people loved coming to work in that environment? They lost, over a period of 3 years, every single member of their scouting team. You see, we all have been on teams that we were afraid to say what needed to be said. And it affected the ability to solve a problem. They were not effective in solving a problem and filling a major hole in their roster. And they were not effective in the ability to make a crisp, clear, timely decision. Does that impact an organization? Listen, you've heard me say many times the difference between world-class organizations in any field and those who are meddling, just middling in the middle. Those two things are the ability to solve problems effectively, quickly, and well, and the ability to make timely, fast, but very informed decisions. That's what makes a world-class team. And so, how many of us have ever been a part of a team that you know everybody is in the team was thinking one thing and no one was saying a word? How many of us? Now, let me ask you a question. Just be real with me. Why did you not speak up? What was going on that everything inside of you, when you wanted to speak, was saying, don't do it, and you didn't do it? Why? What was your experience? Talk to me. Even online, Trace, if you get responses. Talk to me. Fear of rejection. Huge.
By the leader.
Say that again.
They didn't feel respected by the leader.
Okay. All right. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
I don't hear what you said, but I was going to say, because what you had to say had to do with the leader of the team, maybe the boss or the superior. What you had to say would probably make light of him. Or very intimidating.
Good stuff. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
Leaders that ask for your opinion when they know it doesn't matter.
Oh, or they've already formed it, and they want to manipulate you by giving the appearance that your input matters. It's called manipulation. Have you ever seen that? It just makes us feel so good. Who else? Who else? Yes, sir. Oh, so you better be perfect. You better be perfect. Yes.
A couple online, we've got fear of retribution or retaliation, feeling that the input's not valued, and the other one, it might not be a safe space to actually speak.
That's good stuff. You all, you know what the most powerful form of retribution is? It's not being fired. The more common, more powerful form of retribution is social isolation. That you said something, and I come up to you after the meeting and say hi, and now you grunt at me. You're sending a message to me that there's a price to pay if you challenge me in front of the group. The relationship changes. Somehow I'm not as friendly. I'm a little bit bristly. Make sense? That's a powerful, powerful form of retribution. And so as a result, here's what we find, and those of you who have done a lot of work with us will know the answer to what I'm about to say. In every team, there are two agendas going on at all times in every meeting. And it's any meeting between two or more people. If you're schizophrenic, you can do it all by yourself. What are the two agendas, Nancy and Chris? Above the table? What is the above the table agenda? How do you define an above the table agenda?
It's transparent. It's
What you're there for. What is the formal stated reason why you're there? What is the other agenda? And it's the more unsafe a team is, the bigger this agenda is. What is it? Under the table. An under the table agenda is what everybody is thinking, but what? Nobody is talking. Oh, it will be talked about. The human mind has to bring closure. But where will it be talked about? In the meeting after the meeting. Make sense? In the phone calls after the meeting. You all, in healthy teams, the meeting is the meeting. You with me? The meeting is the meeting. And we're going to talk about in just a moment, how do you establish that with a team? How do you establish that? So let me give you a few things to talk about further about what keeps us in our lives from saying what needs to be said. Number one is we love conflict management. We run away from conflict leadership. They are not the same. Conflict management it's actually a form of manipulating the other person without us knowing it. I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. And I actually believe that I have the ability to dictate the emotional response of the other person. I have the ability not to make them feel bad or to feel appreciated by what I say, how I say it, how much that I say, and now I begin to manage information. And I don't go right after the issue. I dance all around it. Have you ever done that? And in our heads we're going, they're adults. They'll figure it out. They'll put two and two together. You all, if they have to put two and two together, you have not delivered your mail. You haven't delivered your mail. When you are in conflict management, you are skipping the last 5% of the conversation. What do I mean, the last 5% of the conversation? Talk to me. Those of you who have been through our process, what is the last 5% of the conversation? Do not give me crickets, please. do not do that in front of all these people. What is the last 5%, Trace?
It's connecting those dots and saying the thing that needs to be said. Yeah. Oftentimes we dance around it.
Yeah. It's the whole reason for the conversation. It's the thing that most needs to be said, but we most not want to say it. And so we skip the last 5%. And I'll say, well, did you have the conversation? And people will say, well, kind of. Well, sort of, which means what? No, I didn't. Do not skip the last 5%. Conflict leadership says this. You see, conflict management takes responsibility for the outcome. You can't take responsibility for the outcome because you don't know what that person's filter is. You don't know which words that you may speak with complete positive intent that are a trigger to that person. When I was a kid, my dad would say to me, what's your problem? Whenever he was disappointed with me. What's your problem? Don't come up to me and say, hey, Fred, what's your problem here? You may mean what? How can I help? I'll take that as what? What do you mean, what's my problem? Because of my filter. And so as a result, you can't be responsible for the outcome. What is the only thing that you can be responsible for? How you deliver it. Is it being delivered with kindness? Oh, if you're ticked off while you're delivering it, it's never kind. You are not ready to have that conversation yet. Get to a point of emotional neutrality. And so, when I am doing conflict leadership, I'm saying I'm going to do it in a way that's kind, direct. I'm not going to beat all around the bush, but I'm going to be respectful. I want to treat this person the way I want to be treated in how I deliver the message. If I have to think through it, if I have to do a role play with someone, I want to be prepared. And the mindset that I have to myself when I'm having that conversation, I do it all the time to myself. Be kind, be respectful. Be kind, be respectful. Be kind, be respectful. I'm always talking to myself before every difficult conversation. I'm not telling you how to deliver it because you all have your own styles, you have your own personality. Is that fair? I'm not giving you a formula. I'm giving you a mindset. Behavior always follows mindset. And if you have an intent that you want to be kind and respectful and direct of how I deliver what needs to be said, it will come out that way, even if you stumble all over yourself. People will pick up your sincerity. Is this helpful? And so that's what we mean by KDR. Kind, be direct, be respectful, don't beat around the bush, and if the person gets upset, whose gig is it? It's that person's issue. And I'm not saying be callous and say, that's your issue. I'm just saying you can't lose any sleep over it. Because you've done everything that you can. Your responsibility is to plant the seed. You have no control over what kind of soil that received that seed. You guys with me? Trace, anybody writing anything?
They're just right with you. They're right with you. They're just saying that it is hard to do what you're describing, but it's so necessary and so needed in our environments.
Yeah, it is. This stuff is hard stuff.
I do have somebody who said that as they go to deliver, it's really important. That emotional part is so important.
Yes. Here's a sec. So we often struggle between conflict management, which is really not managing conflict. We're letting the other situation manage us, and conflict leadership. The second thing that keeps us from having the conversations that need to be said, whether it's with a teammate, whether it's a spouse, a friend, someone that we care about that maybe has a tendency to go defensive every time that you give them feedback and you're scared to death to have the conversation, is a second reason why we're so hesitant is because of distorted narratives. Distorted narratives. Let me give you some of them. Well, if I say this, it may make the person upset. That's not being nice. Or, it's not being kind when you give that information and they don't like it and they're mad about it. That's not kind. It's not respectful. Let me tell you a story. I don't do a whole lot of executive coaching anymore, but every once in a while I'll take one if it's something from a partner that we've done a lot of work with over the years, and they need some help. So recently I was doing some coaching with an executive from a company that all of you would know if I named it, and I was right up here in this room. And my job is to deliver mail that has radioactivity all over it, but to deliver it in a way that it can be received well. And I shared with him some feedback. I'd called every one of this person's teammates, people that they all loved and adored this person. I talked to 7 of his teammates. And they went, well, here's the issue. He won't make decisions. He doesn't want to make anybody upset, so he beats all around the bush. And we don't respect him because he won't stand his ground. And so I said that to him in our very first discussion. And his look of dismay and hurt was all over his face. I said, "What's going on?" Called him by name. He said, "While the information is uncomfortable, I know you, Dr. Fred, and I know that you are delivering this from a place of positive intent. What I'm most upset about, what I'm hurt about is what? Not a single member of his team ever gave him that feedback, including his boss. Including his boss. So I made some calls. Why didn't you guys, you're setting this person up for failure. If you're not delivering the mail, you're part of the problem. I said, "What's the deal?" And one of them said, "Because it's not nice." Okay, so you know he is floundering. If he flounders, it may impact his ability to feed his family. It may wreck his career if he does not make adjustments. And you know that, and you're keeping it from him, and that's nice. Isn't it crazy the distorted narratives that we have about what respectful is? Let me tell you something. Clarity is kind. Clarity is always kind. Some of the kindest things that you can do are to give information that you don't want to deliver because you do care about that person. You don't want them to feel that pain, but they need to feel that pain. I'll never forget, I've had two major conversations in my life as a young man. One was from my dad when I was working, completely obliterated by workaholism. In my late 20s, and I was neglecting my family, neglecting my kids, my marriage. It was all about letting people know how hard I could work so that they would feel better about me, so I could feel better about me. I'll never forget another conversation when I was a young pastor pastoring a large congregation in the Midwest, and a CEO of a company called me and said, "Let's have lunch." And in the middle of the lunch, he says, "Fred, I want to tell you something." I was 32 years old. He said, "You're one of the most gifted communicators I've ever met. You have a charisma, you know how to move people, you know how to move an entire set of hundreds of people in a common direction. For a young man of your gifts, it's pretty cool." But he said, "Fred, you're stuck. And if you don't make a shift in your leadership, the tragedy is to be stuck at 32 years of age." He said, "Here's what the deal is. You always get mad when you give your committees an assignment and they don't do it good enough. And you say, you take it back and you redo it. Well, if it needs to be done, I'll do it myself. Do it right." Anybody ever said that before? And I was so mad because we were growing, the congregation that was growing by hundreds, and I was working myself to death, and I was mad because no one was as committed as I was. I made no secret of that. I'm exhausted, some martyr. And he looks at me and says, "You know what, Fred? You're right. No one is working all the stuff that you are. Because you said you'll do it, but you'll do it if you want it done right, and we're letting you do it." He says, "If you don't change, radically change this my way or the highway stuff, and learn how to start collaborating and building a team instead of you being the magician with a bunch of gophers around you, you will never succeed or maximize your gifts." I walked out of that restaurant like I had been hit by a 2x4. I'll never forget that conversation. most powerful conversation that was a game changer. You may have someone in your life that is a game changer conversation away, and you may be the one that needs to deliver the mail. Conversely, you may be the person. People who have difficulty giving information often have difficulty at the same time, what? Receiving information. The fear goes both ways. You all, listen, if you can't give feedback, if you can't receive feedback without making it about your mama, either way, you are not an effective leader. And every single one of us can work on that. Every single one of us can work on that. And so, distorted narratives. 7 impacts of not saying what needs to be said. 7 impacts. This is going to be fast. I love lists. You know that, don't you? Lost trust with teammates and leadership of the team. Lost trust. Number 2, lowered morale. Number 3, disharmony. You're not sharing something that's going to be shared because it may upset folks. We need harmony. By not sharing it, guess what you create in the long run? Disharmony. I was working with an organization down south this week, and every member of the executive team of that team said the CEO was one of the most conflict-averse people that they have ever met. And his mantra was, just stay hush about it. We don't want to make that person upset. We need that person. And so don't say anything about it and let time take care of it. Does time ever take care of a conflict? No, it makes it worse. It turns an anthill into Mount Everest. Either you deal with the issue or it will deal with you. It's not a matter of whether it's going to be dealt with. The issue is the question is, who is doing the dealing? Is it dealing on you? It's like dynamite. You don't want dynamite to deal with itself with you. You want to deal with dynamite on your terms by being proactive. Make sense? How many of you feel that this is speaking right at you? Only one of you. And it's my wife. I'm sorry. Guess who I'm really talking to? I'm talking to me. Because I love conflict management. Even though my whole career is based on conflict leadership, it is not natural for me. You show me a person who enjoys conflict, dealing with conflict, leading conflict, and I'll show you someone you do not want to hang out with on Friday night. Is that fair? If you have a soul and a heart and a love for people, you will never be comfortable with these kinds of behaviors. But you got to do it. Here's what's next. 4. Thank you. Oh, Jim, would you go away, please? Failure to innovate or collaborate. You cannot collaborate in a conflict-averse environment. You cannot collaborate in a conflict-averse environment. Because collaboration is not, okay, let's all sit together and kumbaya, and what's your idea, and what's your idea, and what's your idea? That's not collaboration. Collaboration is that you are dealing with a complex problem that has no easy answer. And if you come over here, it's going to have a problem over here. If you come over here, it's going to have a side effect over here. And you have 5, 6, 7 people, and they all have a different priority about how it should be handled. And you want every one of them to have passionate debate. And in the middle of that, there is fierce discussion. It doesn't get personal, but it gets passionate. And it means so much to you, and you're uncomfortable because of the tension in the room. What do most people do at that moment? They don't collaborate, they compromise. Or they, whatever, it's okay. No, collaboration stays with it. It says, we're not done with this conversation. We're not at a win-win yet, but we'll figure it out. But we have to lean into the discomfort. We can't walk away. And because I know that you have positive intent, and I have positive intent, we're doing this for the good of both of us and our team. Make sense? That's collaboration. Very few teams truly collaborate because they check out too quickly in order to feel better. It takes courage to be a collaborative team. It takes high emotional intelligence to be a collaborative team. And you cannot have innovation without collaboration. I can't tell you how many companies say we want new ideas. We want to reinvent yourself. And they think the idea is to have a strategic planning session. I do a lot of strategic planning. I hate strategic planning. I'm a visionary. Details are completely unnecessary in my view. Right, Tracy? Would you take this part of the recording off? And so, no, the answer is not doing
Wait,
strategic.
Dr. Fred,
Yes.
I have feedback for you.
What? What?
You do have trouble with details. And it's okay. It's okay. You have a team around you.
Let me say this. Tracy, this is my show, okay? I am going to pay for it this afternoon. You know, you all, and when you've got a great team, people know your weaknesses. They know your strengths. And if you're an effective leader, you want to surround people around you who are better than you, who are smarter than you. And you are not intimidated by that at all. In fact, you are jacked up because of it. And collaboration is the result of an environment where the leader has set a safe environment. And when you push back on the leader doesn't get defensive. The leader says, thank you. This is the kind of behavior team that we need from everybody. Because if you've come with baggage from another organization and you've never seen that before, and someone pushes back and your heart's up in your throat, well, what's going to happen? They're expected, do not you ever embarrass me in front of this team again. Instead, they hear, you know what? That's leadership, you all. Thank you, Bill, that you care enough to challenge me on this. And Bill, I'm hearing you. Who wants to be a part of a team like that? Yes, sir.
I think that is so powerful what you just said. So powerful.
That was my idea. That was little Freddie, not Fred. Here we go. I'm full of it today, you guys. I'm sorry. What number? 5. Poor problem solving. If you don't have collaboration, you haven't had thorough dialogue, and your decision making gets cloudy. I can't tell you how many school administrators are leading teams that have cloudy decisions, and they can't figure out why their achievement scores aren't going higher. or why their engagement scores aren't going higher. You don't start with planning, you start with people. Now, eventually, you got to include planning. But if you don't provide the people environment, the planning department is a waste of time. You guys with me? Number 6, Jim, you're awesome. The quality of the decision and the solution. And number 7, diminished overall performance. You know, there was a study done by McKinsey Consulting. Came out about 2 weeks ago. And here's what it said. Organizations that are constantly working on creating an environment where people feel psychologically safe, where you are developing leaders to speak their mind, to listen as much as they are talking, and there's an ongoing environment of building leaders who will not bow to crickets. You with me? 19% greater return in their objectives year over year over year compared to an organization who would look at what I'm talking about today as a bunch of fluff. This isn't fluff, gang. This is called best practice business. It's also called the way you want to be treated. And it doesn't have to be either or. It is both and. You guys believe that? As I wrap this up, any comments, questions? What are you thinking? No crickets. Show some leadership. Yes, sir.
When you're talking about surrounding yourself with leaders, I'm going to put nerd glasses on a little bit here, but it's almost like being Nick Fury, not Tony Stark. Be the guy that gets the talented people around you to all do what they need to do to run your business or save the world in the case of the Avengers. You don't have to be the guy going out there putting your body on the line and firing off rockets.
I love it. I love it. That's exactly what we practiced right before we got in here. Who else? Thank you for that. Yes, sir. Ben.
This is tough to do in Northeast Wisconsin when you're the Midwest nice or whatever, right? When you're opening up the doors for everybody, and you go to church with everybody, and I mean,
Yeah.
I always think this is great out east, right? You know, if you're in Boston, it's be easy, right?
Oh, out east, they don't say bless your heart out east. Oh, I'm from the South. We say bless your heart, and it means a lot of different things. You guys, toxic nice is conflict management. It's beating all around the bush. It's not delivering the mail with clarity. It's trying to create harmony by not taking responsibility. And ultimately, when you don't take responsibility, it always creates disharmony. So, one last thing. If you're not delivering the mail of constructive dialogue to help someone because of the same fear and seeing both as weakness, you're probably also not doing well in lifting up people and saying thank you and I appreciate you in building them up. If you can't receive constructive feedback, you can't give helpful praise. And one conversation like that, you all, with a person could be a game changer for that person. You never will know the power of a conversation where you lean on someone and use your voice to prop them up. In 1981, I have a cousin who was eventually the colonel of Hunter Air Force Base in Alabama, the leader of that. And when he graduated from college, he was kind of lost. He was a Division I football player. His name was Bob. And that was his identity. And he was struggling. He'd been cut by the Colts in training, and he didn't know what else to do. And one day my dad and Bob were driving together out in Arizona where we live. And Bob was telling him that I'm struggling, Uncle Mike. And Dad looks at Bob and says, Bob, I got an idea. You know, Bob, for some reason I feel led to tell you I think you would be great as a pilot. You ought to consider going to flight school because you got the smarts, you got the drive for it, you have the ability to adapt, and, well, I can't do that. Yeah, Bobby, I believe in you, and you could do this. He planted a seed. A year later, he was in flight school with the U.S. Army. Eventually, he became the head of the entire medevac division in the U.S. Army. Decorated colonel. And now I am in my 50s. And my son Todd, who had come through a period when he was 14 through 17, he had a crystal meth addiction. And he came through it. Our family went through hell, but we came through it. And now he's 21 years of age. He's been clean now for 5 years. And his dream is to fly helicopters like his Uncle Bobby. When you've been a crystal meth addict and you're trying to go after being a helicopter pilot, that's problematic. And you're going to have, so he went, put himself through flight school himself, commercial rated, did everything he could to show the Army that he was serious. And he still was getting nailed by the recruiters. So I called Bobby one day and I said, hey, Bobby, you know Todd, you know his past, and you also know how he fought through it. He says, I sure do. Great kid. I said, Bobby, they're giving the business. They've asked him to go and have 2 different surgeries on his eyes in order to qualify. The first one he did, they came back and said, we're sorry, it was the wrong eye. So guess what he did? He went back and got the other eye fixed. All these kinds of things for 2 years. Bobby picks up the phone and has a couple of delightful words with the recruiters. And Todd got into flight school. Bobby opened the door, but he had to do the walking through the door. One conversation with my dad led to Bobby impacting the lives of thousands. And now he's intervening for my dad's grandson. 5 years after flight school, Todd is now he now flies for Southwest Airlines during the week, and he is a Black Hawk instructor during the weekends. Flown 3 different missions. And now he was also the medevac instructor in the U.S. Army. And one day he got a distress call. There were 5 people on top of Mount Rainier in the middle of August, in the middle of a blizzard, who went up on Mount Rainier in shorts and sloggers. And they are caught in a blizzard on the top of Mount Rainier. The wind is 60 miles an hour. They are in trouble. Can you get that helicopter in a 60-mile-an-hour wind on top of Mount Rainier? And Todd and one other person flew up and saved the lives of 5 people. That was because his Uncle Bob interceded a few years earlier for Todd, who interceded for 5 people. That was because my dad interceded for Bob 44 years ago. 44 years ago, one conversation, I believe in you, you need to hear that, made a difference for 5 families 44 years later. Don't ever underestimate the power of using your voice, whether it's in a team or whether it's someone who has no hope that needs lifted up by your voice. Isn't this a great concept? You all, I appreciate you all. You are so awesome. All of you all, I hope today is a lift up for all of you. Use your voice. Give words to someone who needs to hear those words and have the courage to do the right thing for them. Okay? Thank you, you all.
Thanks, Fred. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We always want to remind you that stay connected with us. We want to be a part of your leadership. If we can help in any way, please connect on any of the social medias that we have out there. The other thing, we just want to do a little shout out to Insight Magazine. They did a 25 fastest growing companies. We were honored to be with 25 companies a week ago at Lambeau Field, being recognized as one of those companies. So thank you. I think Sarah's here somewhere. Is Sarah here? There you are. Thank you so much for the recognition, and man, to be with those great companies. It was awesome. Also, I want to remind everybody, we have our Leadership Conference coming up June 13th through the 16th. Really important, we will not hold a think tank that month. We're moving everything to the Leadership Conference, so please join us. We would love to see you there. We have people coming in from all across the country. Great learning, great speaking, more of Dr. Fred, Dr. Stephen Peters. We have a couple of additional speakers we'll announce this week, I'm sure, and just really look forward to having you all. So thank you so much. Have a great week and weekend. It's March 8th, in case anybody needed to know.